Well, right now, some new controversy over the Iran nuke deal, with Tehran delaying talks with the UN's nuclear watchdog group that were set to start just days from now until February. Plus, there are now growing calls from lawmakers and nuclear experts for the Obama administration to release the exact text of this deal and its side agreement that some have reported on and whether or not it actually exists. In the meantime, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is making it very clear that he has no plans to allow a vote on the bill that would slap new sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program, even though 59 senators, including 16 Democrats, support it. Senator Tim Kaine is not one of the supporters. Here's what he has to say about a new round of sanctions. He says, quote, "We should not impose additional sanctions against Iran in the midst of this diplomatic negotiation. I support the current crippling sanctions regime, and I will gladly vote for additional sanctions should these negotiations falter. But now is the time to give diplomacy a chance." Now, while all of that is happening, this is on the heels of Iran's President Hassan Rouhani saying the agreement is a sign that Western powers have surrendered. Joining us now, Richard Grenell, former spokesman to 4 UN ambassadors and a Fox News contributor as well. So a lot there, Rick. We're going to go through it bit by bit. Because of your former position as spokesman, I want to play for you what the president's spokesman, Jay Carney, had to say about those surrender comments in Iran. Let's take a listen.
The agreement marks the first time in a decade that Iran has agreed to specific actions that halt progress on its nuclear program and roll back key aspects of the program, stopping the advance of the program and introducing unprecedented transparency into Iran's nuclear activities while we negotiate a long-term comprehensive solution. So again, as I said yesterday, it doesn't matter what they say, it matters what they do.
Rick, your thoughts?
Boy, I actually agree with them. It doesn't matter what Iran says, it's what they do. That's why it's so troubling to see Senator Kaine and these other congressional leaders back away from sanctions. What we need to be able to do is keep the pressure on up until the Iranians change their behavior. Agreeing to go to a meeting or agreeing to something on a piece of paper without changing your behavior is no agreement at all. And this is one of the problems that I have after working at the State Department for 8 years. The State Department actually thinks scheduling a meeting is success. Scheduling a meeting is a tactic to get to success. And what we need to be able to do is hold the Iranians accountable until they actually change their behavior, until they stop doing something.
Rick, if I could, there's a big question about what success actually looks like in this debate, right? In your experience working for the State Department, would interim agreements like the one that was just announced between our country and Iran and several other big powers, would the text of that agreement be released to the public?
Sure. Not only should the text be released, but, you know, these side agreements, which are called sometimes white papers and sometimes they're called non-papers, these are the details that absolutely go with the agreement, and they have not been released. You know, Marie Harf, who is John Kerry's spokeswoman yesterday, she was very dismissive and said, well, there is no secret agreement. But the fact of the matter is it was secret to us. It wasn't secret to those who were negotiating because they actually put an agreement, a non-paper, in with the agreement.
And if I could,
and
Rick,
they also gave that non-paper to the IAEA, who are non-Americans. So they should release it to Congress.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that our viewers know what we're talking about, because over the last 24, 48 hours, there have been a variety of reports in the LA Times and other papers that there's some sort of side agreement that Iran's foreign minister referred to. And that sparked a lot of questions, especially of the administration here, of, well, what side agreement are they talking about? Is there something there? So that's what you're saying, is that any agreement, any paper or non-paper agreement in quote-unquote normal circumstances would be released to the public?
Absolutely. The agreement and all of the details that go with it. The details are what the State Department is saying is a non-paper. It's what no one in Congress and certainly the American public didn't know about. We didn't know that there was this non-paper extra information, extra details. And all we're asking for now is release it. If you don't want to release it to the American public, at least you should release it to the congressional oversight committees so that Congress can read it and know exactly what the administration is saying. What's troubling, Jenna, is that we found this out about this detailed agreement from the Iranians, not from the U.S. government. Paul Richter, who is the LA Times reporter, a very good reporter, was able to really decipher this by talking to U.S. officials and find out some details that John Kerry has never released to the public.
And so what's interesting about that is because Congress is pushing for, in a bipartisan matter, new sanctions. There's no vote scheduled. Senator Reid said he's not going to do it. But one wonders if some of the details could affect that debate. The Washington Post had an interesting point, Rick, about another round of sanctions, though. They said this: the senators already may have accomplished the maximum good by proposing the bill, raising the pressure on the administration and Iran. What do you think about that? Is just the notion of new sanctions to come, of a divided Congress and White House, enough to add pressure?
I think, yes, it would be if you would have not relieved the pressure and allowed the Iranians to have access to a whole bunch of more money. And really what you're doing is you've walked back some of the sanctions and you now have a new threat that we would put some on. And so it's really muddled. What I think the best thing to do is keep all of the heavy sanctions, the hard sanctions on Iran until they change their behavior. Not when they schedule a meeting, we don't relieve the pressure. It's when they change their behavior.
Interesting. A difference between a down payment and a reward for changed behavior. Rick, great to see you, and always good to rely on your experience. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenna.